Hello, and I'd like to welcome Coach Revan of Shopify Rebellion and Coach Mabry of Dignitas. You guys are both coming off of some pretty tough losses in the last week. I'll start with you, Mabry. What have you seen from the guys this week that's going to be able to turn that around?
I think our early games have been a lot more consistent, and we're pretty confident in how we play mid-game as well. So going into this week, I think that'll be a big strength of ours.
And then for you, what did you see kind of in their performance, even in the loss, and then in scrims this week that is really good from your team?
I think regarding to the stage games, you know the song Dumb Ways to Die? I think we lost in the dumbest way possible. So simplifying macro strategy as to just doing what the most standard play is going to be our neutral thing from now on. And in matters of scrims, I think we're getting better and better every day.
In regards to that, when you do have a loss like that where you can kind of pinpoint so many things, as a coach, how do you redirect and kind of focus the team?
I think it's understandable what they were thinking, but I think just having a solid, neutral, combined idea as to how we want to play the game, like just sit on the control, don't go for the crazy backdoor, and just do the most simple thing possible is now an agreed upon direction for everyone. So that's how we're going to proceed.
And then for Dig, it feels like you guys are so close always to kind of punching up against the better team. So how do you recover? Because that's a very different type of loss, right? Like, what do you tell the team and how do you refocus them, especially with so many veterans on this roster?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it was a difficult loss, but for us, it really wasn't that bad. I think we left that week pretty confident in our play going into the rest of the week. You know, even those matches we talked about them, and it was pretty apparent to all of us. We made a mistake here. There was a lane swap in the first game, and then we kind of threw in the game 3. But overall, at this point in the season, we're very on the same page about how we want to play the game. So it's pretty easy to go over the mistakes and go to the next game.
Nice. Well, all the best to both of you. Have fun in your match today, and it is Shopify Rebellion versus Dignitas on the other side of this.
Of Week 5, Day 1. Back in the arena, live from Santa Monica, California. I'm Raafaa, joined here by Azael. And before we got into drafts, we already had some spicy banter in the pregame lobby.
Yeah, they were trash talking a little bit back and forth. I think this is going to be a good one, and it's a really important game for both of these teams.
Oh, yeah.
Shopify yet to get a series win, yet to get a game win. They're really still trying to look to get on the board. But for Dignitas, they've already played the top 3 teams, the big 3 that everyone is talking about, FlyQuest, TL, NC9. So they had a really tough strength of schedule in the first half of their series games. Now they have really got to start picking up these wins to get where I think a lot of people expected them to be, which is up more towards that top 4, top 5 kind of finish.
Yeah.
So these are must-wins almost at this point for Dignitas.
And for Dignitas fans out there, you're definitely riding on way more confidence considering that Dignitas is one of the few teams in the league who have managed to take a game off of the top teams in Cloud9 and Team Liquid, whereas for Shopify, as you said, yet to have find a game win, let alone a series win, but they have made changes. Last week, they brought Boogie back into the starting lineup, and while it was still not a win, there's a lot of differences in the way they were playing the first 20 minutes of the game that looked more promising for the future.
I mean, at the very least, it was a long, competitive, hard-fought series, right?
Yep.
You know, they did lose both the games, but it was 50-minute games. It was really long ones where straight up they just had been getting blown out every single game prior to that. So they got a lot more competitive. We want to see them continuing to move in the right direction there. We heard Revan talking about how they want to simplify things. They're going to go for straightforward. They're going to go for easy. They're going to be on the same game plan. So that is what they have kind of aligned themselves with. So after hearing that, I'm very much expecting Shopify to go for straight, standard, hard engage comp, multiple forms of engage, a comp that really excels in 5v5. That is the easiest way to play out the game. And so that's kind of what I'm expecting here from the draft.
Well, Shopify have already started off with one of the best engaged tools in the game, that Crystal Enchanted Arrow. Ashe locked in for Shopify. Technically, this could be a flex for either bot or support, but recently we've been mostly seeing it come from the primary bot laner, so more than likely still a support yet to be locked in for Zeyzal. Boogie hovering that signature Evelyn as he came up to be an Evelyn one-trick during his solo queue days. But it's going to be the brand locked in, and there is the Leona. And like you said, Azael, This is some fundamental League of Legends composition making here. AoE damage, 2 forms of engage. What more could you ask for from Shopify?
Yeah, I mean, Brand is obviously a really strong team fighter. It scales well, not a ganker. You want to power farm. You want to be ready for those 5v5s. And yeah, the Leona and the Ashe, obviously really strong with the engage. Senna going to get locked in, so it's going to be a farming Nautilus down in bot lane. It will be Senna as that fasting Senna, very, very, very likely. This is a really strong duo we have seen a lot over the years. As I feel like, at least in the LCS, really eclipsed the popularity that we used to see from Senna Tom Kench by quite a bit. People do tend to favor this duo a lot more. And both, the Ashe and the Brand are obviously great engage targets for that Nautilus. You can try to lock these guys down. The Senna can help to enable dives, so if Dignitas does want to grab something a little bit more aggressive from jungle than from top, you can be sending those guys into the back line alongside the Nautilus. Obviously some pretty good backline access from the Senna, but also from the Corki with the rocket poke. And some AD bans coming out here, as they are potentially expecting that Shopify would need an AD mid laner here to pair with the Brand. So Lucian going to get banned out. Obviously things like Tristana and Jace also could be on the table here to get banned out. And we'll see which one Dignitas does want to try to prio.
Meanwhile, Shopify have been taking down the number of junglers available for Spica to play. That's why the Sejuani, the Maokai, and the Ivern have already been eliminated. I imagine that if Shopify want to continue limiting that pool, if they think that Dignitas wants something for Spica that can facilitate and enable the rest of the team, maybe a Vi ban, but no, it's going to be the Nidalee ban instead.
Okay, yeah, so 4 jungle bans there from Shopify. Obviously, Brand has been taken away. Zyra's been banned out as well. So that's 6 junglers taken off the table here for Spica. But there's so many jungle options these days. I don't think it's going to be the Nunu. I think Zven's just having a little bit of fun, but we'll see what is going to get locked in. Zac definitely an option for both top and jungle. But Lillia...
Yeah!
I'm a little surprised to see the Lillia. I mean, it's interesting because I've talked specifically with Spica about Lillia. And he generally is of the thought process that Lillia is really strong, but only against melee-heavy comps. And because there's not that much melee locked in just yet, I was a little bit surprised. But obviously, again, there's so many of these top-level AP junglers had already been banned out. So he's been pushed down the tier list here a little. Zeri mid, also obviously something that has been gaining popularity. We've been seeing Zeri mid, we've been seeing Zeri top. So in theory, could be going to either lanes, but they do want AD to pair alongside that Brand. And that is going to be... Cassante lane locked. It is going to be Zeri mid. So electing to go for this instead of the Tristana. Obviously, Lucian was banned. And we've seen this played a couple times in the LCS, but it is a pretty popular pick overall. Scales really, really well. Has a fair bit of safety. Obviously, with the E, you can scout out bushes with your W, so you can kind of keep yourself pretty safe and scale very, very well.
And the final lock-in from Dignitas is Licorice's signature Poppy top lane. A nice pair into something like Cassante, who does have a lot of dashes. If you can clip him when he tries to go in with the E, you can stop it with the Steadfast Presence. You can even block a Zenith Blade engage from Leona as well. Or if you get right on top of Zeri as he attempts to skate over the wall, you can also block that as well. But apart from that, Dignitas...
Wait, he wanted AP Nunu, and Nunu got hugged.
Oh, man. They baited him. They must have seen the sign.
Yeah, Zven was looking out.
All right. Before we get into the game, Azael, I want to look at the compositions one last time. Once again, Shopify, going back to fundamentals, going back to basis, standard teamfight composition. Whereas Dignitas, they have some teamfight power, but I think it's a little harder to execute. Your engage is Nautilus, but then any follow-up engage is reliant on Spica to get in range and look for the Lilting Lullaby off of a Blooming Blows Q Flash.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I like Shopify's comp a fair bit more. We'll have to see if they're going to be able to execute on it, but I think you get, pretty good value in the 1v1 for the Poppy, but Poppy doesn't really have the ability to dive into the backline very easily. I think Lillia is going to really struggle because you don't want to just be hitting the Cassante and the Leona. If you walk forward, just get stunned up by the Leona, and you have all of these range champions that are really high DPS bursting you down. That could be very difficult. So it seems tough for Poppy, seems tough for Lillia. I do think their comp is more difficult to execute on, but we'll have to see if Shopify can really pull it together and try to get their first win of the season.
Let's hit the rift, y'all. Nothing too spicy out the gate, although Boogie has BVOY in his back pocket. Trying to see if they can get some aggressive vision onto Spica's Raptors here.
And Ashe's level 1 is just insanely strong, so It is always something that they can look for these level 1s. Obviously, you know that Spica's going to be wanting to start Raptors here on the Lillia, so there's potential to see if they can try to harass him on it or push him off. At the very least, they're getting a little bit of damage down on Jensen, but Jensen will still have time to base. Not going to be a big issue, and this is also letting Isles move in down on that bot side. Potentially ward, but is going to hold on to that. And as expected, it will be the farming Nautilus. He is playing TP. Of course, support item going to be there on Zven.
Licorice might be in trouble. There's no CC available from Shopify early on, unless FakeGod was able to get all 3 procs of the Tofo strikes. But that is a big chunk to start off the laning phase.
Yeah, and he's actually not going to base. This was kind of going to be my question: is will he base right away? He does elect to just stay in lane. He does not pot, so it is a pretty big chunk. He's going to be missing a couple hundred HP right off the bat, which is going to make things a lot more difficult. Obviously, he did have that counter pick, wants to be able to play for this 1v1, and we'll see how he's going to handle it. If he's just going to try to get an early base or something like that. Raptors already completed for Spica. They know he was going to be starting there. Brand is actually going to be starting on the blue. And just Raptors Wolves, such a fast start for Lillia, who has a lot of the AoE damage, has a really, really strong early clear. And we want to see Spica really accelerating on that clear to try to get as fast of a pace as he possibly can.
And this is really curious from Spica. Normally, when we see in this AP jungle meta, you normally see just like top to bot or bot to top full clear. But he's going for a reverse full clear where he started the Raptors, now is doing his entire blue side, so he'll end up level 4 on the top side of the map. This will give him a window to aid Licorice in case he needs to get that base off.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is also about, if you're expecting to be losing on the bot side, it's very hard to play for bot side scuttle. So by doing this sort of a clear, you reverse clear back up towards top, you get the scuttle up around, where there's going to be a lot more safety. Brand is clearing top to bot, and Ashe is just really hard to get prio against early on. These kind of farming Senna lanes are likely to be on the back foot. So I think it's smart for Spica. It sets him up for an easy scuttle on top side and just trying to play around where the prio is going to be.
What this does mean for Shopify is that Boogie will know, since they also have the ward on Spica's blue buff to confirm that he was there early, that he will have full control of this bot side map. I'm not sure if they could pull off a dive 3v2 into Senna Nautilus, since their health bars are still fairly healthy, so more than likely Scuttle Crab into a base timer.
Yeah, I think, especially when you are playing these AP junglers, it's so much just about the speed at which you're doing it, right? And if you try to go for something like a risky dive, and it doesn't work out, you potentially could be falling behind the tempo of the game. If they push off their tower, I think they're going to go for it, but a dive under tower with them this healthy, aftershock on Nautilus and everything as well would be so risky. So he just waits around. Brand clears so fast that he's there. He has the time to spend before actually going over to that scuttle on spawn, so it is just going to be the kind of trade of scuttles, and then we are going to see these guys very likely both just base. But Boogie is actually wrapping around, so he's at least considering it. But we'll just kind of base in the brush, and both junglers going to have that 7 camp cleared. Now Boogie cancels it again, so he is really spending a lot of time.
They want to get proactive with Boogie here. Zven might be in trouble, but Boogie turns his eyes towards Isles. The Ignite is ticking down, and he knows there's no point in burning a flash, so it's first blood going over to BVOY.
Nicely done, honestly, by Shopify. Boogie did spend quite a bit of time, but the camps haven't even respawned, so it's not a big deal. He canceled that recall a number of times. The dive would have been way too risky, but they just wait for the minions to bounce. He delays his recall, ends up getting that kill.
Maybe a little bit more action as Isles teleports back to the lane, trying to fight and make sure that this wave doesn't fully crash into the tower. If they can hold on this freeze, they'll put the wave in a better state for Dignitas' bot lane to handle. Now that Spica is on the bottom side of the map, they're going to re-engage. Zeyzal still has flash, but he's below 50% HP. Looking for the Senna W, does not connect.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to get that. Spica, because he also started the little clamps, your second re-clear is going to be so nice, right? Where we saw Boogie starting on the blue, he started Raptors, and then he did Wolves. So he's already done his second round of Raptors and Wolves, and he's on his second round of Gromp. So he's going to be kind of accelerated in that way, but of course, getting first blood for BVOY down to the bot side is so good. And when you think back to last split especially, where BVOY got, first team All-Pro as an AD, he was the win condition for Shopify.
Yeah.
This is how they got basically all their wins, playing around BVOY. So, when they talk about going back to basics, maybe it's more than just the comps. Maybe it's more than just, how they want to play out the late game. It could be, let's just play to BVOY. Let's have, Boogie be willing to sacrifice a little bit of his own farm to try to enable BVOY on the Ashe here who was such a good player for them in spring.
Yeah, and here comes the second adaptation from Buki. Instead of going towards the Krugs for a second full rotation on his full clear, he's roaming with Zeyzal, getting ready for that 6-minute grub timer spawn. Spica's already here, though, as well on the top side, but no eyes on Zven quite yet, as he's still on the bottom half of the map.
I mean, honestly, I don't think that Dig will really be able to do too much to actually fight here, because Zeyzal's already here. Zven, you know, hasn't moved yet whatsoever, and you don't have mid prio. Insanity was in a better spot in mid lane, so I think you kind of just have to accept it, just give this up, and Spica will do just that. Zeyzal going to see if there's an opportunity to look for Licorice, though.
Licorice still has flash. The all-out from FakeGod brings him closer to Zeyzal for the knockup, but nice Keeper's Verdict. Boogie would have to flash to land some damage, but Licorice still has flash anyway. Nicely played from the Dignitas top laner.
Yeah, nicely done there by Licorice to get out of a tough situation. Kind of put himself in a risky spot, then fought his way out because he knew they were up over there by the grubs. I guess just expected that Leona would either already be walking down towards bot or helping with the grubs themselves. Didn't expect that Zeyzal would be running straight over to that top lane that quickly, but Licorice does survive and is A-okay. And they do trade it for 1 plate and a little bit more damage on that turret down on bot side, so a little bit of gold traded back. But obviously, I think Shopify going to be very happy about how this has started off. You got all 3 grubs, you got the first blood. Things are looking pretty damn good for them.
Yeah, and because of the tracking that Dignitas have already had, knowing what Buki's rotation has been like, they know that Buki's on the top side of the map. Spica has prio from bot already gained, so this is an easy dragon to secure for the first one of the game as well.
Yep, going to be able to trade that dragon back on the other side, and Spica farming it up pretty damn well. But it is going to be very close between these 2 junglers, both of them trying to power farming. Interesting to see the electrocute as well for Boogie. It's pretty atypical, I would say, but it is obviously a little bit of more burst. A lot of people do like Dark Harvest because it's pretty easy to proc that, and it's kind of more of the scaling rune. So
yeah,
I guess he's just seeing this more as a little bit more of that early game power.
Yeah, that's exactly where my head is at. Boogie really wants to make sure those first ganks are more lethal, and the threat level and the success rate on it is more likely to happen, so that Shopify can get that snowball going as the engage on his Zven. Pops the cleanse and the flash is walking away as the Ignite is taking him down. Good Senna W, locks Zeyzal down. Isles still should be fine as BVOY doesn't have nearly enough damage to rain him down with these arrows, but Boogie is in the area, and that might threaten off Dignitas' bot lane. However, Spica has also arrived. Meanwhile, mid lane, potential 1v1 is Insanity pops a lightning crash, but nothing to really get excited about.
I mean, there's not, honestly a lot of options you can do on Brand. You can do Comment, you can do Electrocute, you can see sometimes people doing Conqueror and stuff. So it's really kind of dealer's choice. And in Pro, it's a pretty big mixed bag. People do like a lot of the different options, but we'll see how this does work out. So far, so good. And it is kind of just this slow farming style, but I think it could be difficult for Dignitas later on. Maybe they feel they can kind of just out-execute in these 5v5s. But yeah, I'm a little bit worried about how it's going to be, for Licorice and Spica in particular. How they're going to be able to be successful in this 5v5 setup later on. Because if you don't really nail the engage, there's so much damage between Ashe and Zeri, as well as the Brand, who can really burst you down pretty quick as a frontliner. And since they don't have that much burst and kind of dive into the backline, it could be a little bit awkward on how they have to play out these fights.
Yeah.
Puts a lot of pressure on Isles, I think, honestly, to get a really good setup. So Spica can come in, get a good ulti out, have that follow-up out, because Spica isn't really in a position where he can kind of just walk in towards those carries.
I mean, if you are into Leona and Cassante, something has gone horribly wrong on the other side. For Dignitas, thankfully for Isles, he's going to have a little bit more gold in his pocket thanks to that fast farming Nautilus. However, 3v1 dive. There's a teleport available from Jensen and Licorice if they want to answer back. Zven is roaming in. Jensen is already on the move. Depth charge. Right on to Boogie for the engage. Counter-engaged by Solar Flare and the Crystal Enchanted Arrow, and Zven is gone. Insanity is here for the roam as well. So Jensen has to run back mid, and Isles is pushed off the tower.
Yeah, that was a pretty aggressive engage from Dig. They were trying to actually force this play because they had Jensen coming down, but they were down a man still, and now Dig can try to counter dive.
Slam into the wall. Swirling Seed and the Dawning Shadow for a little bit of extra damage. FakeGod is getting ticked down by the Lillia passive. Spica and Licorice will re-engage the dive, and it should be clean. Not even needing to land the Swirling Seed. It's just the passive that burns.
Yeah, nicely done there by Dig. Good patience. They go for the initial play, then they allow themselves, the dots tick off, they drop the aggro, then they go for the redive when there's no cooldowns. But on bot side, another kill here as Zven dies, walks back, dies again. That is always a terrible feeling situation. And the pressure from Boogie just going to continue on this bot side. They want to play towards BVOY. They want to enable this Ashe. He's going to be, out to a pretty good early lead here. Of course, you have to not compare the Ashe's gold to the Senna, but even comparing to the Nautilus, is 1,000 gold ahead of the Nautilus. Has those 2 kills. They've gotten 2 plates as well. So BVOY's in a great spot.
Spica, the only thing he could do was just enable that top dive with Licorice and get the second rotation of Grubs. But so far, the gold lead has been pretty even for both sides, as Shopify clearly with the advantage, trying to continue to snowball BVOY on this bottom side of the map, whereas Dignitas, I mean, their only option is, well, if they're pouring all these resources in the bot side, we got to try and get top side a little bit more exploded. But it's a little hard to really enable the impact of a fed Poppy versus a fed Ashe.
Yeah, of course. And thankfully for them, the kill did go to Lillia, so maybe they'll be happy about that, just using top lane as a way to try to get this Lillia ahead. We will see if they're going to be fighting for the grubs here in a couple minutes, looking for that second grubs. Shopify would love to grab 6 grubs if they were able to do it. Insanity has just been kind of farming it out, very even in the mid lane. It's basically dead even. There's a couple minions behind for Insanity, but he also has a couple more farms.
Boogie is in the bottom jungle again. Decent damage on Zven. The Pyroclasm crocs the passive, and Boogie flashes in for the kill. Nice use of the last seer. Zven is down once again, and they're going to look for a dive continuing on to Isles. He's fairly healthy, but they're going to start it anyway. Teleports are coming in from both teams. Isles forces in the back out. Def charge onto Boogie, but Zeyzal still burns him down from the back. Licorice arrives just to see the corpse of his fallen comrade.
Yeah, Boogie is just running this game right now. Gets a solo kill on Zven over behind the tower. That is 3 deaths for Zven in the last, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. And Boogie is just non-stop running down here. Sure, Spica's going to take away a couple camps. Sure, he's going to be ahead a little bit as far as that goes, but it honestly doesn't matter because it's not even a good Lillia game. If this was like a 4 melee comp over on the other side, then I might feel like it's more of an even trade to be getting more gold on the Lillia, but it's just not.
And this is the new look with Shopify. It's a little bit of an old look since this is what it looked like back in Spring Split, but clearly they wanted to try things with Tomio, and once it wasn't working, they put Boogie back in, and just night and day difference. It seems that the team has a clear identity of what they want to play for with Boogie back in the lineup. The rest of Dignitas, they're going to have to weather the storm, as Boogie has clearly made it his mission to set up 10 on the bottom side of the map, as we're back into another pause.
Yep, into a pause. We will let you know as soon as we find out any sort of updates. But so far, so good for Shopify. This is one of the best starts to a game they've had. Because this is part of the interesting thing about their split, and I mean, tough thing, honestly, is that it's not even like how Immortals have been losing games, where Immortals are often very, very close in their games. We talked about this. We have a stat. Basically, it's like how close you are within. It's if you're behind, there's a major deficit. If you're ahead, there's a major lead. But if you're within like 1.5K, that's considered close.
Yeah.
And they are highest in the league at staying within that close stat, but they still lose a lot of their games. But they're competitive. Shopify has been mostly getting blown out. So to 13 minutes being 13 minutes into the game, having a good comp, being up about 1,000 gold is actually a really, really good spot for Shopify.
Yeah.
This is one of the games that is looking very convincing for them. And as Dignitas, you have to start feeling a little bit nervous here because, again, these are such important wins for Dignitas on the other side to really fight for playoff position. This is a team that I think a lot of people had high hopes for, a team with a tremendous amount of experience that people were saying, well, if they can hit their top end, this could maybe be a championship contender or at least be a top 3 contender. Yeah. And if you lose this series to Shopify, if you lose a game to Shopify, you're going to start getting really, really nervous because they did not pick up any wins against those top 3 teams.
Yeah, and currently in the standings, they're 1 series win behind NRG at the moment. And so picking up a series today would at least tie them and put them in that dark horse category alongside maybe 100 Thieves as well. But for the side of Shopify, coming out with a very strong opener, a very strong early game plan, relentlessly on the bottom side, playing back to what made them such surprising underdogs in the spring split where they took games off of Cloud9. They took games off of some of the top teams in the league, and it all came from snowballing BVOY. So, you know, just going back to what Revan said in the interview, it's like, hey guys, we're going to go back to basics. Let's just start with a fundamental game plan at all stages of the game. We don't need to try anything spicy. We don't need to try anything, you know, super, super extreme. And the only catalyst is Boogie enabling all of those plays on the bottom side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Boogie is starting out with a really, really good game here. And this is Dignitas' strength of schedule. So obviously, you know, they were able to take down 100 Thieves 2-0. They did get a win off of both TL and C9, but those were series losses. They lost to FlyQuest as well. So these last three are super, super important for them. They have got to be able to get the wins here. And when you're looking at, you know, strength of schedule, when you're looking at the teams that you want to play, arguably it's the three weakest teams in the league that they had remaining, right? So these are the expected wins. So I do think sometimes there's a lot of pressure on that. You know, they were kind of joking around about it, but when we had Zven on the pros, he talked about when they played against CL, he's like, well, that's a scheduled loss, right? But the ones that they really needed were the ones against Shopify and Energy and Immortals. So even though it is just game one, it is a 3-game series. Shopify coming out looking good, and BVOY, who has done it for this team a lot of times throughout the year, is in a good spot to carry.
Yep. For the side of Dignitas, you are hoping. Hang on. Spica's trying to invade for this red buff, but FakeGod and Boogie ensure that he does not steal it away. Spica gonna go for the Lilting Lullaby onto FakeGod, but he pushes him. Nice timing of the Pathmaker into the all-out, brings him under the tower, and Spica's in trouble. Does not need to burn the flash. The arrow is not going to connect on anyone, but well played by FakeGod.
Yeah, that was really well timed. Used the Pathmaker to actually immune the Lilting Lullaby, then finds the angle to knock him against the wall with the Pathmaker, then all out, pulling him back. Nice turnaround on that play, so they defend the red. Isles on the top side, he can't even really walk up. You know, yeah, he does have the frozen heart, but it's difficult for him to actually walk up and challenge because this tower is getting very, very low. They do knock down the tower on the bottom side, so first turret gold going to be going to Dignitas. That's something working for them, but Isles needs to be able to continue to farm. This is not a support Nautilus. He needs to be that true, really tanky member. And that's so difficult when you have two really high damage AD carries in the Zeri and the Ashe, plus one of the best tank killers in the game in the brand.
Yeah.
Right? So you are going to potentially really struggle to survive if you're not really keep bumping in your farm. So you need a ton of MR and a ton of armor as well.
And with that second purchase on the component, it's a Warden's Mail, so no magic resist in his inventory quite yet. So Brand is going to be cooking Licorice in these fights for the next 10 minutes while he's working towards that second item spike. Rift Herald was secured by Shopify, and as we go back to L3, oh man.
I mean, this is what they're trying to avoid, right? These are some of the worst statistical splits in LCS history. Right now, Shopify doesn't even have a single game win, so you know, it is important for these guys, even if you're not going to be, you know, playing for the championship, or even if you might not be able to make playoffs, which they still can. You have to be playing for pride. No one wants to be associated with being the only team to go winless in LCS history. So it is so important for them to be able to get one of these wins, to be able to close out on one of these games, just to kind of have that weight off your shoulders, to be able to move forward knowing, all right, at least we got to win. Let's keep building. Let's see what we can get done.
Yep. And so far, the early game has been pretty solid from Shopify. It's a decent 1,000 gold advantage, so it's not completely game over for Dignitas yet, but it's nice for Shopify to be in this state as they're already starting to put their resources into the mid lane so they can shift their priority and put that vision line back into the river as they set up for the third dragon of the game spawning in the next minute.
I mean, and they are just kind of keeping it simple, you know, playing a smart strategy here. The strategy very clearly focused on bot, you know, fast clear on Boogie, go down, support BVOY, play towards objectives. They took one set of grubs, they got one dragon, one herald, and now they are looking to potentially set up for this bottom tier 1, then could look to play towards that next dragon.
Engage onto the support here. Isles is locked down. Death charge just on the Zeyzal to buy some time. He flashes away, but FakeGod is on the hunt. The all-out and the pillar flame from Boogie over the wall sends Isles back to the fountain. And with 40 dragons on this dragon coming up, Dignitas are in a world of trouble. If they want to try and contest, it looks like this is going to be no challenge for them.
Yeah, there's no real way, I think, for them to contest. They're just looking like they're going to try to trade on top side. So they do take down the top lane tier 1, but they're always kind of losing out on these trades because it feels like Dig is maybe trading an objective, but they're not getting a kill back elsewhere. You know, it's 6-1 as far as the kill score does go. Senna obviously does scale well, but...
Oh, Licorice was waiting, looked for the flash slam, but didn't get the stun off into the wall, and Sandy's able to flash away and get out alive.
Yeah, and that was just that replay down on bot side, so that was how Insanity did lose his flash. Spica obviously still farming very well, knows he has to keep up his pace. And we'll just see if he can find an angle. You know, I do think it's a very hard Lillia game, but at the same time, if you can find that perfect angle, get a Q flash on multiple of these carries.
It's not like he hasn't done it before. Now, Spica has definitely done it before. We'll see if he can bring it back for this series against Shopify. As Shopify already taken out the tier 1 turret. They move towards the dragon. There's no other objective to play for on the top side since Baron hasn't spawned yet for the next 2 minutes. But Licorice is trying to lay siege on that tier 2 in the top side. And Shopify is actually going to move some members over to defend it. A swirling seed from Spica does not land on a FakeGod, will not push him away. The second dragon for Shopify has been secured meanwhile, and now Dignitas. They're still not down that much in gold, but for their sake, as you've already alluded to, Azael, the times of when you want to engage and force a fight from Shopify, I imagine you want to do it sooner than later if Shopify still start to increment that gold ever so slowly.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll kind of see if they're going to be able to do it. It's also interesting seeing Black Cleaver being built up here by Licorice. And generally when you see Poppy come out in competitive, it's a lot more of kind of just like full tank builds. You know, people are doing that sort of style, but Licorice does like to play it a little bit more aggressive. This is really his signature pick. Yeah. We'll see him go, you know, Sundered Sky. Now we're seeing him go Black Cleaver. Obviously, that is going to help against an armor stacker like the Cassante if you're trying to really play more heavily for that 1v1. And he has been playing pretty heavily through side lanes as well. Poppy also can do a really surprising amount of damage. You know, if you do catch someone, get the wall bang, slam them against the wall, get both sides of your Q, you know, both parts of your Q. Yeah. The detonation does a ton of damage, so it can be pretty surprising. And we'll see if he can kind of find the ability to do that. But, you know, there's not that many dashes to stop. Obviously, there is, you know, the frontliners that he's really mostly going to be kind of trying to annoy. But playing against, you know, Rylai's Leandry's brand is going to be very difficult for Licorice as well, who has no MR whatsoever. You know, he's on Tabbies, Aranduins, and that Black Cleaver. So team fighting without MR against a brand is just straight up really hard.
We'll see if Licorice decides to itemize MR next once he starts getting some farm back in on that side lane push. Baron is now live as we have approached the 20-minute mark. Shopify are already trying to challenge for vision in the river. Licorice is the first one in. Isles and Zven coming over to clear some vision in that lime bush as well. Dignitas want to set up something, but Zeyzal lays a trap. The arrow follows Zven even after the flash and cleanse. Dignitas lose their bot laner once again, and Shopify have full control of the river.
Yeah, Zven has just been getting caught a lot. So many of these dives are focused in on trying to take him down, and when you are the Senna trying to get vision, it can be very difficult. They lay a trap, they do catch him, and they punish him here pretty heavily. He didn't have any tank with him to really kind of go first. The Nautilus wasn't there, who's been farming. The Poppy was not there either to be that one face checking where you really would want them to be. Zven at least has a decent amount of souls, you know, 63, but nothing crazy, so it's not like he's really scaling that fast by any means, and doesn't really have too much of an edge so far. And there's going to be a pretty big onus, I think, on the Senna as well as you get to later stages to try to be getting things done. Just because of the difficulty of this game. Like, it feels like it's so much on the Corki, so much on the Senna, or you're really going to be lacking on damage. Just look at how much ahead BVOY is, though. Like, BVOY is really going to be crushing through these frontliners.
2 full items for both him and Insanity on the other marksman in this composition. And the fact that Buki had already hit Leandry's Rylai's quite some time ago, they are extremely favored in these fights. The only member on the side from Dignitas that is a true carry that has 2 items is Spica on this Lillia. But it's so dangerous, as you've already alluded to at the beginning of the draft. Like, how do you, as Lillia, get into these fights without getting completely one-shot?
It's tough, and now Shopify, they're in a great spot. 2 items on both their marksmen, 2 items on their jungler, so they're just going to start up Baron. And this team shreds Baron so fast. The Baron, I think, is just dead. I don't think they're even going to get there in time, but we'll see if Dignitas can do something about this.
Yeah, Zeyzal will just make sure that Spica does not get into the pit. He locks him down. Solar Flare does not land, but he gets the slowdown. Keeper's Verdict punts out one, and now Shopify have to be careful not to give over any other deaths to the side of Dignitas. Swirling Scene connects onto FakeGod. He's slowed down. Spica's going to try to land the Lilting Lullaby. And Jensen gets one back onto FakeGod, and now Shopify, but the Pyroclasm is doing so much damage. Boogie being able to turn this fight around, and Insanity has turned up the thunder and lightning as he pops the ultimate, and he's riddling down the damage on the Licorice, trying to force him back. Isles with the dredge line, but the shield bow is going to give him a little bit of health, but he still goes down anyway. Licorice gets a huge shutdown. It's a 1v3. Licorice will do everything he can to survive, but Shopify are triumphant in the battle at the Baron Pit.
Yeah, Boogie barely survives and gets out. Dig knew they needed to get something there. Unfortunately for them, they couldn't get much. The Baron just dies so incredibly fast. They didn't have eyes on it until way too late. They try to rush in here, but Shopify intelligently realized we can just turn and burn. We can actually finish this off before anything really happens. Then Dignitas, they do get the ejection on the Brands. They say, all right, we're going to go for the fight. They get the slam on the wall against FakeGod. They're trying to create space here, but Boogie is here, Boogie is waiting, and as they funnel in, he flashes forward, and it's just bouncing this Pyroclasm. His ult is getting so much damage done on multiple members. That creates this chaos in which Insanity dashes forward, then flashes out of the stun there from Licorice, and he has just been bought so much space by his team. Decides to go back in one more time, but a good turn, a good hook, does at least get them that kill. But at the end of the day, it's Baron, it's more kills for Shopify, and Shopify pushing up bot lane, looking for this tier 2. Going to be a pretty big lead here, and a really tough position now for Dignitas. Just like Shopify really want to get their first win, no one wants to be the team to give it to them.
Yeah, that is bragging rights for no one that you actually won. I thought about it, I was like, wait, you actually don't want
not bragging rights.
Solar Flare and Arrow lands onto the back line. Jensen's in trouble, tries to Valkyrie away, but he still goes down anyway thanks to the burn from Boogie. Insanity lays down another one in Licorice. Two men gone from the side of Dignitas. Spica in trouble. Insanity burning him down with the burst fire. Quick flash to turn from Isles with the dredge line, but now he's forced to flash as well. Zven doing everything he can to push Shopify off the base, but they're making the siege anyway and undermining the structures within Dignitas' own home.
Yeah, Dignitas can't do anything at all to stop them. They get the kill on Jensen, and again, Spica really cannot contribute in these fights very well at all unless he gets some sort of a flank or isn't noticed. Zven is too far behind to really be a threat, so you kill Jensen, that's kind of it, right?
Yep.
Like, he is really the only one doing much at this point, and even he is very far behind. So without Jensen, there's no wave clear, there's no real threat. So Shopify just know, we're going to push, we're going to get in your face, we're going to look to try to force our hand here. And now 6K up, and it's about 3.5 minutes, 3:40 right now until that final potential dragon for them where they could get that Mountain Soul, which would just feel like put the game probably entirely out of reach from Dignitas, because it just makes it that much harder to ever get any sort of a pick, ever get any sort of a burst kill.
Zeyzal fishing with that ultimate, just gets a slow onto 3 members and forces them to retreat, conceding the space of this red buff quadrant. Off of that one Baron play, Isaac, Shopify had went from a 2,000 gold lead to nearly 7,000 in the span of a few minutes. This is a huge monumental lead, and if Shopify can carry this through, they are one fight away from ending the game and picking up their first win of the Summer Split.
I mean, the bot lane inhibitor obviously is already gone, so Dig trying to fight to defend these other ones, but eventually someone's going to have to go down towards bot lane and answer that, and that's where things are going to get difficult.
Licorice is holding on. The resistance is making sure that he does not get bursted down easily. It's getting dicey as Insanity continues the siege on this top tier 2. The rest of Shopify making their way through the tier 2 in the mid lane. Dignitas running out of options in salvaging this game.
I mean, Insanity is so far ahead of Jensen, so it's like you kind of want to put all your eggs in the Corki basket, but Zeri just kind of out-carries from this spot pretty heavily, unless Jensen has bought so much time.
Death charge onto multiple members under Shopify. Zeyzal's in trouble. The slam from Licorice. Maybe that's the Dawning Shadow that gets a huge shutdown for Dignitas. And that's a 5-on-4 advantage now. And it's just enough to stop Shopify with the siege.
Yeah, they are able to get that kill. Nearly were able to take down FakeGod as well. They got the flash off of him, so that's pretty good. missing Summoner, 1 kill. They do slow the push a little bit, but this is the problem when you fall this far behind. Not only are you losing control of the waves, you're losing control of your jungle, right? So the gold lead just extends and extends and extends because they're farming 4 quadrants of the map, right? They're farming all those jungle camps. And Dignitas is going to have to try to see what they can do here. In about a minute, Baron is up. Another minute or so after that, that final potential dragon is up as well. So we'll see if Dignitas is going to challenge for it, if they're just going to turtle up and hope they can somehow farm this game out.
I'm going to call my shot here, Isaac. If there's any hope for a Dignitas turnaround, it's when Spica's flash is back up. He just purchased Seekers. You can go for an aggressive Q flash into ulti, press the Seekers for the stasis to give you some time, and the rest of Dignitas, hopefully by that point, could have enough damage. There's no cleanse from the side of Insanity, cleanse available from BVOY so he could get out of the sleep. But that seems like your best chance of turning this game around.
I agree, but it also just feels like so obviously the best chance that if I'm on Shopify, all I'm talking about is just never stack. Like, just stay spread, right? As long as the Zeri and the Brand and the Ashe are not standing on top of each other, he can Q flash in all he wants. As long as he only hits 1 person, I don't care at all. Like, you're going to win that fight every single time. And now Licorice in trouble.
Shopify not going to even give Spica that chance. The arrow on the Licorice sets him up for death. Dignitas now on the run. 4 versus 5. Decent lilting lullaby, and the Seeker's arm guard buys some time, but he gets burned down anyway. Insanity on the chase. The flash from BVOY for the slow on his Zven. He cleanses it, but Jensen not going to be so lucky. Shopify are ready for their first win of the Summer Split.
Yeah, Shopify surely have done it at this point. Zven and Isles are still alive, but they got no wave clear. There's a big wave with multiple supers down in the bot, and Shopify are coming for that Nexus.
And Shopify are going to do everything they can to make sure nothing is too crazy. Stick to the fundamentals. Play the conditions out. Shopify not even chancing with Zven and Isles. They turn their eyes to the Nexus turrets. The real objective is the Nexus. Shopify fans rejoice! We will not go winless this Summer Split!
Shopify are on the board, baby. Get their first win of the summer. That's step 1. Now we got to see, can they close out this series against Dignitas and get a series win, which would actually tie them in the standings against Dignitas and put Dignitas in a very precarious position for playoffs here. Shopify has a big chance to really turn their season around. Boogie coming in last week, it got way more competitive against Energy. And then this week, what a start to the series for him. He dominated this game. It was all about Boogie on this brand, crushing that bot lane.
Yeah, well, during the Summer Split, you could win a trip to Worlds 2024 or a set of Player of the Week statues. Use your MasterCard to make a purchase from the Incline store and save your card on file to be entered for a chance to win. With that, let's head on over to the LCS Lounge to break that one down.
Shopify! They got their first win.
Let's go.
Now they got to win a series, but like they got the first win of the split. That's crazy.
Yeah, and a lot of it was actually through Boogie. We have his early game reel. He completely ran over the bot lane. It was a very close-looking game until this sequence of plays.
Yeah, and as we look at some of his highlights, I think the thing with Boogie coming on this team, even in those crushing NRG losses last week, was that he absolutely gives the team direction, right? And in this game, it was dive bot over and over and over again.
There was one angle where Spica did a great job of defending a dive from happening, but Boogie was incessant. He was constantly looking towards bot side, and it was paying off to get them a lead early.
And look at that brand damage. I'm going to keep pointing it out until he pooped damage.
And I will say, this post-game breakdown, that gold graph, that's not some flippy, wild game.
Yeah.
That's a win the early game, control objectives, build your lead, and close it out. This is a very clean win by Shopify.
And as we're watching behind the scenes off camera, Jat, you were like citing what Revan said. You're like, they're going to be methodical about it. They're going to return to basics. They're not going to try to like slam the win instantly to just kind of completely dominate. But I really like seeing this out of Shopify. They seem to finally have a direction.
Yes, I think they sat on their vision really well with their lead, because there's always one foot out the door where I was like, yeah, they have a lead, but it can go out the window. But they sat on their vision multiple times. I think Zven was actually a victim to multiple kills. The hard part was just being able to take down the turrets. But I think at the like tier 2 turret, I think we ended up seeing one of them die for it. But in terms of the first, 20 minutes of the game, that's a big thumbs up.
Yeah. And a really dangerous moment now for Dignitas, because as much as we can praise them for taking individual games off of C9 and TL, they lost the series. And if they lose this series as well, they'd move to 1-4 and be tied for last. So they really need to pick it up in the next 2 games, and Shopify suddenly having the upper hand. We're going to see what happens in game 2 after the break.
Spawn.
Oh, I just ulted.
Alright, just get ready to dodge the shocks, I think. That's the technology. Oh.
I just got one shot. Oh, I'm gonna die. I'm dead.
Oh, Blob's kind of smurfing.
Oh.
If you get my pod, I can make
where's the train, dude? We need the train. The train's coming in. Right there, there it is. Okay, don't run into Rek'Sai.
He's only 20k. I think we're chilling now. Yeah. He's pretty low.
Rek'Sai's almost dead.
I'm kiting.
Nice! Dude, Rek'Sai's almost 1,000,000 health. Nice, guys.
It's a free win.
What do you guys think of Swarm so far? It's a lot different to League, where it's, you're pretty much hitting call, talking with your friends, and trying to survive. So I like the social aspect of it.
Yeah, it feels better to be working with your teammates instead of against them, like a normal solo queue experience.
Yeah.
Flaming your teammates 24/7. I mean, I guess you could flame each other in this game too. It's not that hard.
I was just getting farmed that whole fight.
I had the most damage? How useless were you guys? I swear I was useless the whole game.
You had the train, bro.
Oh, I had the train.
All right, are we done or are we going again?
We gotta go again.
Absolutely.
All right, let's run it back.
Red Bull gives you wings.